Correct. This all can be summarized into the practice of determining right and wrong in the pursuit of the good life. Now, this is a very boiled down definition. I just want to stress that. There are multiple schools of thought in ethics. There are multiple different levels. You've got everything from meta ethics, which is very high level. You're asking what is right, what is wrong, what are these concepts, down to normative ethics, where you're looking at, well, I know what right is, but what is the right action, down to applied ethics, where that's a specific use case, like what is the right thing to do in this specific scenario. This all fits under ethics. So I like to boil down the definition just to this simple statement because it's encompassing enough that we can start a good conversation off of it. So this is ethics as a person on a human level. We are using ethics in our day-to-day life. We're using it to determine what our actions should be. So what this looks like in practice, you have life. Life exists on a scale. You've got the crappy life. Yes, I know I put crappy on a slide. It's Wednesday and I'm feeling a little sassy today. So we've got the crappy life. We've got the good life. Crappy life, think like everything's on fire. Everything's gone wrong in your life. You don't feel at ease with yourself. You feel uncertain. If anything, you feel bad about yourself constantly. That's not such a good life. The good life, though, on the opposite end is you feel excited, you feel encouraged, you feel like you're following your passion, you're aligned with your values. This is the good life. What we're doing with ethics is we are using our understandings of right and wrong and our values to make decisions that lead us away from that crappy life to the good life. So it's that very key decision-making mechanism that we have on a human level. This is something like most of the time you are not actually aware of the ethics decisions that you're making. So it's something that you'll feel as a gut instinct of, I need to do this, or I need to act this way, or it's so subconscious that you're not even aware that you're making these ethical decisions in our day-to-day lives. And I'm stressing this is on the human level. Ethics is something very human. But at the root of it all, it's helping you make decisions towards that good life. What does AI ethics mean then? So if that's what ethics is just in our day-to-day human lives, what is AI ethics? So let's put it on the same scale. We're doing less crappy here, but worst possible outcome for your AI. That is, you're on headlines for sending someone to jail that shouldn't have been there, or you have created a technology that has convinced someone to commit suicide. Like that is a bad outcome. We do not want that. That's a worst possible outcome. Best possible outcome is not, and I want to stress this, is not just, oh, we didn't encourage someone to commit suicide. We didn't do that. It's instead going above. That's only halfway. You're like, if you say, okay, we prevented the worst possible outcome, cool. You're at the middle of this scale, at the spectrum. But when it comes to AI, you can actually push it further so that AI becomes this great tool that's making the best possible outcome. It's aligned with our values. It's helping you as a person achieve your goals, your objectives, your passion in life. So scale that we're working on with AI, ethics works the same here again. We're making decisions around our technology to avoid the worst possible outcome and push it towards the best possible outcome. So zooming in just a little bit, when we are using ethics as a prevention tool towards the worst possible outcome, we're using it as a tool for risk mitigation. What this means is we're assessing a situation for the potential risks that are associated with the technology, and we're putting in the proper safeguards to prevent those risks from happening. For example, you are creating an HR hiring software. We all know that there is plenty of opportunity in there for that software to be biased towards gender, towards race, et cetera. We know that those are problems that exist. What we're doing here when we're using ethics is we're identifying where those problems could arise and then putting in the proper safeguards, either technical or process safeguards that will prevent that problem from happening, prevent that worst possible outcome from happening. So that's ethics as a tool for risk mitigation. We also, in the opposite direction, ethics becomes a tool for innovation, which is very fun. This is something that you'll hear, or if you haven't heard yet, you have concepts like ethics by design, values by design, privacy by design. Anything by design usually is looking at using ethics as that tool for innovation. What that means, let's use privacy. So privacy is a value that we have. We're looking at how do we design our technology in a way that promotes and enables privacy. What we're doing there is we're using, again, ethics as that tool, looking at what decisions need to be made so that design and development decisions so that privacy is flourishing, say, in our technology. It's brought to the forefront. It's a concrete feature of the technology that's leading us to the best possible outcome. We can talk about why you would want privacy on a different day. But that's how you start to use ethics as a tool for innovation. You're looking at a specific value, you're designing for that value, and you are embedding it into what you are creating, that viewpoint. So ethics sits as that decision-making tool. So what is AI ethics? It's the conscious use of ethics as a decision-making tool in the design, development, and deployment of artificial intelligence. And why I'm emphasizing conscious is, if you remember when we first started, the saying ethics is a human tool. It's something that we use day to day. The difference between being a human and using ethics and then being an AI ethicist or someone that is engaging in AI ethics is you are bringing what is often that subconscious thought process to the surface. You are bringing these decisions to the surface so that you can identify them, you can fine tune them, you can adjust them. It's like taking a magnifying glass and looking and going, is this actually the best possible decision that we could be making around this feature, around using this data set? You're bringing it to the surface level so you can assess, analyze, and adjust if need be. That's really the practice of AI ethics. Now, within that, there's lots of different values. AI ethics kind of sits as that umbrella. You'll hear a lot of different terms such as responsibility, transparency, trust, explainability. These are all values. These are all principles that exist under the umbrella of ethics. So when you're looking at a specific lens of, we need to increase transparency, or we need to understand the responsibility that we have with this technology, that's still the practice of ethics. You've just targeted, or you've zoned in on a specific principle, and you are bringing that principle to light, to surface, in the conscious use of understanding the decisions that need to be made around it. So, as I said, I'm an AI ethicist, and I'm very practical minded. So let's talk about what I do. And I'm going to walk you guys through actually what are the initial stages that I go through with clients when I engage with them. So you get to see a little bit of my conscious thought process when it comes to using ethics as that decision-making tool. So what does an AI ethicist do? We pretty much do three things. And I've been told to stop calling things simple because it's quite complex, but to me, it all looks very simple because I can boil it down to, we have three main jobs. We're identifying the ethical problems, we're designing the best fit solution, and then we're deploying and monitoring that solution. I want to stress, though, that this first step is incredibly important and is often gone unnoticed or underappreciated, in the sense that you actually have to spend, I would say, about 50% of your time working in ethics identifying what the problem is. What I mean by this is I'll often have clients come to me and they're like, I need ethics. Okay, cool. We have a long way to go then. If that's where your mind is, we have to figure out where the problem is. Why do you say you need ethics? What challenges, what friction points are you facing? And that kickstarts a whole process where we're starting to dig in of, well, where does the problem exist? What problem are you facing? What negative outcomes would you like to change? Or what outcomes would you like to improve as well? Two-way street here. Once we've identified the problem, then we can actually work on designing the solution. And then, of course, once the solution's in practice, you have to monitor it and adjust as need be, because ethics is not black and white. You don't solve and then walk away. You solve and then look at how did that solution come, or how does that solution work? Can we improve on it again and again? To stress as well, though, in identifying the ethical problem, as an ethicist, I can't do anything until we find that problem. So the most I could do is sit there and tell you, here's some fun facts about ethics and AI. But if we cannot find the root of the problem, then there is no possible way to design a solution off of that. You have to find the problem, which is what I want to emphasize here. Because I can't really sit with you guys and design a solution for something if we don't have a problem. So what I want to do now is walk you through how I find problems, where I am searching for ethical problems. And this is, again, 3 layers. I know it's more complex than this, but I like the simplicity of 3. But this is generally the layers that I look through. It's people, process, and then the technology. And I'm going to walk through each of these. But I want to actually stress I like it. I think it's a fun fact, but usually takes people by surprise. About 80 to 90% of the problems that an ethicist is solving, or that is an ethical problem in technology, the problem doesn't actually exist in the technology. The problem is rooted in the people or the process. It always catches people by surprise. Ethicists generally are not actually working with engineers or data scientists on coding or labeling data and such. We're usually actually working with leadership or project managers, people that are making decisions around how the objectives of the technology, because that has knock-on implications for how the technology is designed. So 9 times out of 10, we're focused on people and process. What does that mean for each of these layers? Well, I always start by looking at the people layer. And by this, I look at the company and I ask, who is building the technology? Which is a great question. Who is building this technology that we are analyzing? And what I'm looking for is to be able to foster a culture of curiosity. And this is supported by a trained and informed workforce. What I mean by this, if you have a team of people that are not bought into the importance of ethics, it doesn't matter what decisions, what solutions, what problems exist, you will not find success, because you need people that are motivated and understand the importance of carrying out that solution. You have to start with the people, and you have to start with the culture around it. Ethics can be notoriously looked at as something that can be judgmental. I usually like to start any engagement with a client by saying, I'm human. I make mistakes all the time. I am not morally superior, as sometimes people will ask me if I think I am. No, I make mistakes all the time. I am human. The difference between me and you is I have a skill set in surfacing these conversations and fine-tuning them and being able to work as that translator. But I'm not here to judge you. That is the last thing that I'm here to do. The fact that we're in this conversation, I'm going to start with the assumption that you are trying to make the best possible decisions and you are a good person. And that's what we're going to start with. Instead, I'm looking at how do we create a culture of curiosity? How do we make these ethical challenges or problems something to be curious about, not judgmental, not, oh, you made the wrong decision, that was a bad decision. It's along the lines of, well, why did you make that decision? Tell me about it. What were you thinking? What were you trading off there? What kind of factors were you looking at when you made that decision? And is that the best that we could do? Could we make a better decision even? Can we improve? It's not you did it wrong. It's can we improve what the decisions were that you made? That's what I mean by curiosity. It's a very open approach to, hey, what's going on here? You know, we're all human. We all make mistakes. We all are trying to figure out as this is going, as we're flying the plane, you know, we're building the plane as we're flying it. Let's take a look at this in a way that is open and fostering that open conversation. Coupling that with supporting the training of of your workforce. And this doesn't mean everyone needs to be ethicists. That's actually the exact opposite of what I would suggest. But everyone needs the basic training on some terminology, or how to work with an ethicist, or how to engage in these conversations. And that's looking at, like, what kind of questions do you need to be asking yourself? Or at what points in time in your workflow do you need to ask specific questions that are ethical questions that kickstart a thought process? This is all on the people level. This is all ensuring that the people who are building your technology are strong and well-informed and have that open curiosity towards ethics. This is the first place that I look for problems and ethical problems. This is where I start every single project with, every single engagement with. It's what does your culture look like, and what does your training look like? Because we need the people ready and prepared to engage. If they're not, we're never going to get anywhere, and all we're going to do is frustrate a lot of people in the process. So, people, first layer. And surprise, AI ethics is a people problem first rather than a technology problem. Sometimes a little counterintuitive there, but oops, I've gone one too fast. After the people layer, I'm watching time because I know I want to leave time for questions. After the people layer, we look at the process layer. And what this is asking is, how is the technology being built? So once you have the people bought in, once you've got that strong base established, then you're looking at how are they actually building the technology. And we're looking to establish internal governance and strategy that enables the ethical decision-making. What this means is you're looking at things like policies and codes of ethics. Those are guiding, like, North Stars of here's what I should be objectively looking at. A lot of times the process, you're looking at the incentive structure within a company. If you are prioritizing speed at the cost of accuracy, you're going to have knock-on effects there that have ethical implications. Is there a framework set up that allows teams to be able to walk through those key questions during their workflow and development cycles that surface ethical problems around the technology? Is there a strategy around the values that you're trying to embed, and what happens when you need to make a trade-off between those values, a trade-off decision? This layer is also incredibly important, because if you have people that are motivated to make strong decisions and to embed ethics, but they don't have the mechanisms or the tools or the process to bring those decisions to life, you're, again, not going to find success, and you're going to frustrate the people building the technology as well. A great example of this one, actually. So I had a project, a client project a few years ago, where their data science teams were motivated, highly motivated. They really wanted to embed fairness into their products. And they knew as well, these were data science teams for a financial institution. They knew that they needed to embed fairness. They were looking at the technology and they're like, something's not working here. We've got all of these different metrics and it's not working. So they had the people, they had the technology, but they were getting incredibly frustrated because they had no workflow management process. They didn't have set metrics that they were evaluating for fairness. They didn't have checks in their workflow. They didn't know who to talk to. So they didn't have any process established to actually embed fairness. They knew they wanted to. They knew the technology needed it, but they had no process. And so they were getting stuck over and over and over again and frustrated. So that's just to emphasize, once you know who's building your technology, you need to know how they're building it and get those right mechanisms, get those strong mechanisms in place to help foster the embedding of the values. And finally, on the last level, this is the third place that I look, which is counterintuitive at times, because you would think that I would look immediately at the technology to try and identify the problems. Remember, we're looking at identifying the problems. Technology is actually the last place I look. And then once I've looked at the people and the process, and I'm able to look at the technology, I'm asking what technology is being built. This is where I start to look at what are the risks and opportunities associated with the design, development, and deployment of this technology. So this step is incredibly contextually sensitive. I am looking at the technology itself. I'm looking at the context that it's being built. I'm looking at where it's being deployed, who are the user bases. All of this has implications and can have what will sometimes feel like hidden ethical problems. But once I have the people bought in, I have the mechanisms in place, the process in place to be able to execute, then the decisions around the technology flow. This is where you start to see success because you have people ready to execute and you have people aware of what's happening as well and the ability to put certain decisions into action. So technology is really the last place to look. But these are the main questions that you'll see like in media of, oh, we've got bias problems, or here's the existential question of should I use this data set or not? These are all very important. But if you want to see success beyond just a one-off solution, you do need to start people, process, technology. So these are the three layers that I look through when it comes to working with companies and working with clients as an ethicist. These are the three layers that I look at to identify the ethical problem. Once I've identified it, then there are different solutions that are developed from there. But here, this is a very straightforward formula when you're mentally walking through, where's the root of this problem? Okay, how to work with an AI ethicist. I like to stress this part because it will showcase as well the importance of understanding ethics when it comes to engaging in this work. So, how to work with an AI ethicist. What this really means is how to ask the right questions. Like I said, I'm a philosopher. I love questions, but you got to ask me the right questions if we're going to come up with practical solutions. So what I mean by this, let's use ChatGPT as an example. You knew that ChatGPT was going to make an appearance in this presentation, and here it is. This question, what about that is a terribly worded question. What about ChatGPT should I worry about? Ignore the double abouts, but what should I worry about when it comes to ChatGPT? This is a informational question. As an ethicist, I can't do anything with this question besides tell you, here are some basic facts like ChatGPT is not factual. Don't use it in any use cases that require accurate information. There's IP problems here. Be sure that you are checking copyright or licensing on anything that you are using out of ChatGPT. These are basic points. It's not going to help you if you're actually facing a problem or if you're actually looking at using ChatGPT, for example, in your company or in your technology. What I need as an ethicist to be able to work with you and find practical solutions are three main parts to this question. I need to know the technology that you're using. I need to know your business. So, for example, like what is your business model? There are huge ethical implications in the business model itself. So I need to know, are you B2B? Are you B2C? What industry are you in? These all have their own niche answers and implications that come along with them. And the third one is context. What are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to find risks? Are you trying to find opportunities? Are you trying to create safeguards? Are you trying to create training? What are you trying to do right now? So when you are asking your ethicist, it sounds like a pet, when you ask your pet ethicist, but when you're asking your ethicist a question, looking for a practical solution or a practical answer, we need to know the technology, we need to know your business, and we need to know the context of that question. Only then can we actually give you an answer besides it depends. It usually drives people crazy. You ask an ethicist and they're like, well, it depends. That's because it does depend. We need these three factors to be able to actively give you a practical answer. So instead of what should I worry about ChatGPT, ask me a question like, what if I'm using ChatGPT, that's the technology, to create a B2B medical chatbot, that's the business. What are the steps I can take to protect patients? That's the context. This question I can run with. This question I can sit down with you and say, okay, here are the risks, and here is how we would protect patients in the deployment of ChatGPT in this specific context. So all of a sudden, I've gone from, well, here's some facts to if I'm using ChatGPT to create B2B medical chatbot, that probably means doctors are using it within the hospital to help diagnose patients. But we need to add in the layer of checks for the doctors so that when they are using this chatbot, they understand that they need to check the information in the answers, because it is not guaranteed that that information is correct. So the doctor needs to be in the point of authority when it comes to those answers, so that they can critically think and go, okay, that's not correct. I know that's not correct, or this is the right information and I can give this to patients. That is one solution. There's many more, but I am running out of time for questions, so I'm going to move along. This is just to show this kind of question, you're going to get a great answer from an ethicist on. So takeaways: ethics in AI as a decision-making tool, as we went over. Second, majority of problems are people and process located. They're not in the tech, they're in the people and process, the root of the problems. You will see the consequences of the problems in the technology. I forgot to stress that. You'll see the consequences and the outcomes in the technology, but the root of the problem usually exists in the people and process. And last one, always give your ethicist the context of your problem. And that is it. I'm going to stop sharing, come back. Looks like lots of questions.
Yeah, thank you. That was very interesting. I think I'm just going to start off with the questions that we have in the chat. So one of the first one was, how much tech knowledge do you need for this role as an AI ethicist, from Antonella Strömberg?
So you do need a strong working theoretical knowledge. So what I like to tell people is I don't code. And if I did code, I would be useless to you, because I would be distracted by the details of the code and of the language, versus you need me to sit on the layer above and look at the bigger picture. I'm looking at how does this technology fit in on a societal level, and what are the impacts of the technology, not what is the code. But I do need to know how the technology works. So I need to know where data sources come from and how that processing works. I need to know how the model's developed. What are the limitations of these models in specific contexts? I need to know what are the outcomes that we can expect to see. So I'm not building it, but I have a strong theoretical knowledge of it, because that's helps when I'm on the technical level looking at where some of these problems exist.
Okay. Another one. We have in a digital environment that we are in right now, many of the borders are outdated concepts. So how can we find cross-border set of ethics that can, they can conclude all of the different border sets that we have in the digital sphere?
Different border sets? Sorry, I'm looking for that question. Different border sets?
So I can just read it off top. In a digital environment where borders are maybe an outdated concept, how can we find a cross-border set of ethics?
Okay. So different cultural settings. Sorry, I missed that term. So this is a challenge. Sorry, I sigh because it's a big challenge. It's a big issue that we're looking at actively solving in ethics right now. So there's not a straightforward solution yet, but there are cultural implications. There are cultural effects of our technology. One of the big challenges that we have is we've created technology that's a one size fit all, and all of us are different sizes. So that's not going to work. There are universal truths in ethics. So, for example, you'll see terms such as trust and transparency and privacy on all of the different policies across borders, across different cultures, how they're carried out in each culture and in each geographical location. That starts to depend on the culture itself. I think that there is, and this is me speculating, this is an actual active solution. This is something that I'm seeing emerge and that I am excited to see emerge. I think that in the next years, especially in light of generative AI, what we'll start to see is less of one size fit all algorithms that stretch across any culture, but instead, scale horizontal scale of algorithms, and instead we'll start to see vertical scale of models where you can incorporate cultural data and you can incorporate cultural values and principles into the models themselves, so that it is a reflection of the society, rather than the society and the culture trying to have to figure out how to work with an algorithm that wasn't built for them. So that is my own speculation, I will say. I've seen it start to bubble up in conversations, and that makes me excited because it is actually a potential solution towards being reflective of the way that ethical principles are realized in within different borders.
Okay, so we have another question. It's about deepfake. How ethical or unethical do you find deepfake technology, and what are your thoughts on this going forward?
Okay, so this is my opinion again. Deepfakes are a headache. To me, the benefits of deepfake technology do not outweigh the risks that come along with it. We do not have the proper security or ability to analyze and assess deepfakes to see if say a video is a deepfake video, and the harm that can come from a video that's been deepfaked far outweighs any small benefit of, say, like, it's a fun marketing commercial. Cool. So we're trading off, in some cases, political uprising for a fun marketing video. To me, this technology we're not prepared actually to be able to develop this technology. Instead, that focus, because that technology does exist now, our focus should turn on to how do we educate people around being able to spot deepfakes, and then what kind of tools can we develop for the individual to be able to use to understand if it's a deepfake or not.
So what is your biggest headache as an AI ethicist working with companies and organizations?
That's my biggest headache. I'm a very optimistic person, so these can be hard for me to answer.
Maybe what's the biggest bottleneck when introducing ethics to a new organization or a big company?
Yeah. Getting leadership buy-in currently. So this actually changes, and it has changed. I've been practicing for over 5 years, which, if you know this space, is a very long time in AI ethics. But my answer has changed over the years. Right now, I'd say the biggest challenge or headache is getting that proper leadership buy-in, so that budget is being allocated to ethics, and sizable budgets, not here's a little bit of budget for one person to be hired. That poor person is going to be overwhelmed. There does need to be significant budget allocated towards ethics initiatives. And so thankfully, we're at the point in time where that is the conversation, whereas 2-3 years ago, the conversation was simply, do you know what ethics is? So there has been progress here, but right now that would be the biggest challenge when it comes to engaging with companies.
Where do you see the regulation going? Will it develop in time, or will it always be lagging behind?
It will always be lagging behind, period. Regulation always comes after, because you have to regulate on, well, this is what happened. My perspective on regulation, and granted, I am sitting in Brussels right now, so I am highly involved in the regulation that's coming in terms of AI, or the EU AI Act, is not to rely on regulation as the saving grace. There is a default where people will say, oh, but regulation will help fix this. It won't. Regulation's the baseline. Regulation, if you are compliant with regulation, then you are one step above illegal. Congratulations. That does not mean that you have embedded ethics and you're practicing ethics in your technology. Ethics is above and beyond. I don't like the phrasing above and beyond because it sounds like it's a nice to have when it's not. But ethics goes above regulation and pushes it further towards, one of the classic examples here is Facebook can be compliant, that Facebook can follow regulation, but a lot of us would argue that Facebook is not ethical. So you've got that differentiation there. That being said, it is important to have this regulation. It is forcing important conversations in companies, and it does establish a baseline that we do need. So regulation and ethics should go hand in hand. I'd rather see the regulation, though, look at the process of building technology rather than on the technology itself, because the technology moves so fast.
Okay. I think we'll have one last question before we call it a day. And the last one is from Walid. What is the AI ethical risk for decision related to many platforms connected with ChatGPT APIs? So right now it's like one source for all truth telling. So what are the ethical risks?
Well, I would say there's actually a significant business risk to keep in mind as you're building companies that are building APIs off of ChatGPT, and that is there's no guarantee that you will retain access to ChatGPT. That could become a closed service, that could become paid. There's significant business risk there. You're building on something that is not a certainty or say a public good that you can rely on to be able to build off of. When it comes to ethical risks of building those APIs, there's a couple. I'm going to stress the biggest one right now, though, has to do around privacy and bias. So ChatGPT, there is already significant problems around the data privacy aspects. The data used to train the models was not given with consent. So right now we've got the European Union actually has started an investigation on data privacy and GDPR around ChatGPT. If you're building APIs off of this, you are essentially building a solution off of what could be a faulty base. We're not sure about how the data was processed or what data was used to develop the model, the models, the GPT models. So effectively, you can't guarantee what outputs you're going to have in your APIs. So there's a lot of risks. I'll pause there. I'll stop there because I know we're close to the end, but keeping that in mind, building APIs right now, very fun to test, but be sure that you are testing before you deploy and you stress test it. Stress test it to the point where you feel like you can break it before you actually roll it out.
Okay. Thank you so much for all the audience that made it through today. And Olivia, of course, thank you so much for your time. This has been a great event. We can also announce now that we have a collaboration with Data and AI Summit coming up in June. So stay tuned. You will have some infographics and stuff like that coming out closer to the event. But for today, thank you so much, Olivia, for taking your time. And I hope this was given even for you as well. And you can find her LinkedIn page on our LinkedIn, etc. So make sure to connect and have a splendid day. Thank you.
Thank you all.